Hi there, I'm Danny Flexen and welcome to the latest edition of SecondsOut ReFLEXions. We're here every Monday at 4:30 PM to talk about the boxing action of the weekend just gone. And this weekend there was only one real kind of major show, and some fans might even disagree with that, but it was headlined by the WBC lightweight champion. Yet all the stories you've read about Teofimo Lopez being undisputed are inaccurate. There is a WBC title holder. And not the franchise champion, the actual champion. Regardless of how he got the belt and what you think of that, he is officially their world champion, and that's Devin Haney. Very talented young man indeed, and did pretty much as everyone expected him to do on Saturday night against aging former star Yuriorkis Gamboa of Cuba. I think he was in, and I alluded to this previously, but Devin Haney was in a bit of a no-win situation because Yuriorkis Gamboa's best days came down at featherweight, now 38 years old, not the fighter he once was, and certainly not up at lightweight. He always looks a bit small for that weight. He's been stopped there previously as well by Terence Crawford, no shame in that of course, and Gervonta Davis, again, very, very good fighters. But the problem Haney has is that he's not a massive puncher. He's more of a technician. He's still quite young, so he's probably still developing his man strength. And unless he were to get rid of Gamboa quicker than the aforementioned duo, people were going to criticise. I mean, people were already criticising the match, calling it a mismatch, wanting Haney to step up. And he is still very young, but once you're elevated to that world title level, it's very hard to go back, and a certain quality is expected. He's also put under pressure a bit by the fact that Teofimo Lopez unified the rest of the major belts against Vasily Lomachenko not too long ago. Now, Lopez might be older and more experienced, but you're going to be compared naturally to the other major names in your weight class. And if there's another young fighter out there who talks the talk and then backs it up, and Haney does talk the talk, then you'll be expected to do something similar. And when you see a few weeks ago Lopez upsetting the odds against a pound-for-pound contender in Lomachenko, and then you flip a few weeks later to Haney, who's taken on an aging, undersized opponent in defence of his WBC belt, the comparison isn't really flattering in your favour. So he was already in a kind of no-win situation, and he did what he had to do. You know, there were parts of his performance that were very impressive. He's got an excellent jab. His boxing IQ for someone so young is very impressive, and his movement's really good as well. Haney's got, you know, all the skills. The power could still develop. I mean, he hits pretty hard. He's got some highlight reel knockouts that you can see probably on YouTube and I've seen on social media. But against the top level opposition, he hasn't got that kind of one punch concussive power, which may still come. But for now, he certainly hasn't. Now, people are talking about his next steps after, shutout victory, I think on at least two of the cards against Gamboa. He didn't really put a dent in him, but he did dominate the majority of the contest and won fairly clearly. You know, you could say it was a better victory than, Tank, perhaps, and Crawford, because at least Gamboa maybe had more moments of success against those guys, but they both took him out, whereas Haney wasn't able to. So it's an interesting comparison. I know that Gamboa, many years ago now, did give Crawford a tough 3 or 4 rounds early on with his speed, before the size, power, and just general timing and intelligence of Crawford caught up with him. So comparisons aside, though, people are now looking at Haney and saying, well, he needs a big step up. That seemed to be the most common theme on social media on Sunday morning. A lot of people calling for him to fight Teofimo Lopez and unify all the 4 major belts straight away. I'm not entirely sure that's the right move for him. It's a discussion I had on Twitter with someone yesterday. I understand the fans clamour for it. We want to see an undisputed champion. We want to see 2 young stars go against each other. There's also the theory that against superior opposition like Lopez, it might bring something more out of Haney, some more power, ruthlessness, explosivity. He might rise to the occasion. And I don't entirely disagree with that, but I just think if you were guiding Haney's career, while you don't want him to fight too many more people like Gamboa because of the criticism inherent in that, and because he's not really learning much from being in those fights, you also don't want to pitch him in too early, because he is, 21 still? You don't want to pitch him in too early against someone like Teofimo Lopez, who's just coming off the best win of his career, who's looked quite devastating at times in doing so. It's a more measured performance, of course, against Lomachenko, but has looked devastating in the past. So what's the natural next step? Because for me, this is how I looked at it when I was thinking about this yesterday. You want him to fight the biggest name possible where he's still a pretty significant favourite to come out on top. So you look at guys on the fringes, and a lot of them are already busy. So Luke Campbell's fighting Ryan Garcia. You know, Campbell would be an interesting opponent. I'd probably favour Campbell to beat Haney at this stage, but you could see from Haney's team's point of view why that might be a good fight. You look at Lomachenko, who's coming off a defeat, undersized himself at lightweight. But again, he'd probably maybe still know too much at this stage for Haney. So then you look further down the list, you look at guys like Jose Pedraza, for example, Richard Comey, former IBF champion. His style, his kind of aggressive style might be quite good for Haney. You could move around him, find angles. That might be a good style match for him. But then you've got the unfavourable comparison again in that Comey, really, really good fighter, was pitched out of there quite early by Teofimo Lopez. And if Haney doesn't achieve that, then you fail in comparison once again. So it's an awkward one for him because Comey would be a really good win. It'd be the best win by far on Haney's ledger. But he might not get the respect he deserves for it. So I went through it, had a think, and the one I came up with, really, that I think would be a good next step for Haney before he steps up into that real elite 135-pound level, and I mean no disrespect when I say that, would be Jorge Linares. Still a really good fighter. No gimme for Haney at all. Coming off a good win, but probably slightly past his prime now. Probably slightly past his best in terms of weight as well. Although he's had a really long reign as a lightweight world champion. I thought he was at his best at super feather, probably, maybe feather. But still did really well at lightweight. You know, the defeats recently, Pablo Cesar Cano was up at super lightweight. The one against Lomachenko, he dropped him on the way and gave him a really hard fight. Probably the hardest Lomachenko had as a pro before he lost to, well, actually the second hardest, maybe after Orlando Salido early on, of course. But the hardest in his prime, his professional prime, you could say, until Teofimo Lopez beat him. Really good name value still, even though he's in the veteran stage of his career. He's been well promoted. Everyone knows who he is. He's a 3-division world champion. He's a modern legend. I imagine he'll be going to Canastota one day, not as a visitor, but being inducted. So really good name value, but beatable at this stage of his career, in my view. He had a fight scheduled for over the summer that got postponed. Not sure if that's going to be made again. Golden Boy handle him. They're on DAZN. Haney's with Matchroom USA. They're on DAZN. It seems like a natural DAZN fight, a main event. Haney Linares, and then the winner of that can go on to fight Teofimo Lopez, for example. And would, if they get a good win, like a clear win, rather than a tough fight and a really tight one, you would expect them to be ready, both in terms of profile and in terms of in-ring skill set and experience for someone like Lopez. So I think that makes sense. You know, get a bit more seasoning under the belt for Haney, but against the big name, so raise his profile a bit as well, and prove himself, prove he belongs at the upper echelon. I know it seems silly saying prove himself when he's already a world champion, but Linares would be the best name on his record, and is still, even at this stage, a very respectable name to have. We're not talking about Gamboa here. You know, Linares has grown into the weight. He looks like a lightweight. He's still got good wins behind him. His last win was very good. He looked explosive, skillful, as good as ever. I don't think he is as good as ever. I think if you delve deeper into his record, you'd say, you know, his best years are probably behind him now. But still looks good. He's got the name. And I think it's a good scalp for Haney on his way to bigger things. But I want to know what you guys think. Having watched the Haney performance, how do you analyse it? What did you make of it? And secondly, who should be next for him? Should it be Linares, as I've suggested? Or is there another contender I've missed out that you think could be a better kind of stepping stone, if you like, or next fight for him? Or do you think he should go straight in with Lopez, either because you think you just want to see the belts unified, or because you think he's got a really good chance of coming out on top? That, you know, he'll rise to the occasion, and that his wins so far haven't instilled the necessary hunger or desire in him to really show his best. Let me know what you think in the comments below, and I'll respond to some of them. I always look forward to reading those, most of them. And I'll see you all next Monday for ReFLEXions, again at 4:30. But I'll also be here this Thursday at 4:30 for FLEXpectations, where I look ahead to quite a busy weekend. You've got Terence Crawford against Kell Brook out in the US, the female triple header from Matchroom on Saturday, and the highly anticipated Denzel Bentley Mark Heffron rematch topping a Frank Warren card on Friday. And we'll have someone in the bubble for that, which is always good. So, yeah, look forward to all of that, and I'll see you all soon. Cheers.